Well, here are the trends that we see coming in 2023 that you have to be ready for. First of all, coronavirus changed everything. Lots of work from home, and then data centers shifting from on-premise to the cloud. That was there from the beginning, but coronavirus has frankly accelerated it. So this means your network diagram has changed. So has your protection changed accordingly? For instance, take vulnerability scan. If the endpoint was assumed to be at the office and could be reached by a scanner and is now sitting at home and is almost never coming in, how do you scan? How do you patch? So this would be something for you to actually think about. Number two on my list, ransomware has been very successful. There's obviously lots of defense now against it, especially against the desktop. But operational tech is still not very well secured. I'm talking about things like cameras and HVAC systems, which all too often are also connected to the IT network. And so therefore, ransomware attacks, we believe, will shift to focus on weaker endpoints, which are OT rather than IT. Also, some specific verticals that have tended to underinvest in security have a big investment in OT and have seen good times in spite of the pandemic. One example is manufacturing. Another example is healthcare. These two verticals use OT quite significantly and see security as a second-class problem. Of course, the first-class problem being either manufacturing or healthcare. And so we think that they will be subject to these kinds of attacks in 2023. Skill shortage is an old story. One way to get around this is to maybe co-source so that you're not just buying technology, you're in fact getting a service associated with it. And this can help you if you're a customer. For vendors, we have to think about automation. We have to think about training. Number 4 on my list, what do we learn in 2022? That bad guys are very patient, that they do a lot of homework, that they operate from the terrain, whereas defenders typically operate from the map. Bad guys don't know what you have connected, so they will go off and try to find it. On the other hand, good guys all too often are depending upon a network diagram, but especially given the shift from hybrid, to hybrid and cloud, is that diagram up to date? Are you doing your homework yourself? So this is something to actually think about as a 2023 trend. Number 5 on my list, the extended network is under attack. It's not just you, it's your entire supply chain. People have understood that rather than attack Lawrence Livermore National Labs, which has really good security, maybe they can attack the HVAC contractor that is supporting Lawrence Livermore, and that might be a way to get in. It happened some years back at Target, you recall. Target got compromised simply because the HVAC vendor had an account and that HVAC vendor wasn't secure. Target itself had been relatively secure, big business, lots of budget, focus on these kinds of things. So whereas previously cyber risk, particularly for partners, wasn't an issue, you used to think about availability, you used to think about quality, you used to think about price. Now, all of a sudden, vendors are being asked what's their cyber risk posture is. We had a customer who's a manufacturing facility. They print promotional stuff, the T-shirts, the pens, the mugs, that kind of thing. On the edge of getting a nice fat contract from AARP, had everything sorted out in terms of quality and availability and price and whatnot. All of a sudden, question on cyber risk posture, whether they can pass the survey. So can you or your customers pass that if the cyber insurance people ask you? It's something to think about. Data privacy laws. GDPR, especially in the EU, has shown the way. This is comparable to seatbelt technology, back when cars became a big thing in the last century. All of a sudden, the government had to step in and mandate that you had to have seatbelts, you had to have airbags. Of course, Lee Iacocca didn't like it at all, if you remember, but it was necessary in order to protect the citizen. In similar fashion, we believe that the government is going to get involved to a certain extent. They already have. And this is going to really fall on the provider rather than on the government. Frankly, they don't have the ability or the staff or the expertise to come out and audit you. So the onus is going to be on you as a provider. By the way, this is a really good area to think about outsourcing because you can get compliance specialists, frankly, a lot cheaper than you can if you try to do it yourself. Last one on my list for trends for 2023, identity is the new endpoint. Before coronavirus, we were all about upgrading our antivirus to EDR. But now that you've gone away and all the physical controls are no longer in place, you don't have to swipe your badge. You don't have to sit at your desk in front of everybody else so that they can figure out that the person at that desk isn't the normal guy. You're sitting at home somewhere. So the only way to identify you is through your authentication mechanism. So then, do you have MFA enabled? Can you really guarantee that the person who's logging in as John is really John? So this is something to pay attention to in 2023.